Rachel was 20 and lived in Camarillo, California, and had been to a bar near Waggon Wheel Junction called Old Huntington's. She had gone home on January 18, 1981. Then, around 4 a.m., she took her maid home and never came back. The next day, paperboys found Rachel near her apartment in the carport. She was physically hurt, sexually hurt, and choked. Based on what they saw at the scene, investigators thought Rachel was struck as she got out of her car. Hi and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the cold case of an Indiana teen's murder. Rachel Zandejas and her two young daughters, Eva and Monica, recently moved in with her brother Roy Rodriguez. She didn't finish high school because she was pregnant with her first child, and she and her husband just split up. She just started taking classes at Oxnard College to learn how to get a job. The government pays for these classes, which are meant to help stay-at-home moms who have to get a job quickly. There were no signs, no witnesses, and no one knew what was going on. The husband was cleared quickly, and there were no more hints. Rachel's brother called the Ventura County Sheriff's Office every year on the anniversary of her death and begged for answers. On December 12, 1981, around 3 a.m., a fire was reported in an apartment building near the 1200 block of West Gonzales Road in Oxnard, California. Someone had started a fire in the living room of an apartment when the fire department got there. They were shocked to find the naked body of a young woman in the water. The woman was named Lisa Gondak, who owned the apartment. She had been strangled to death. Police thought that the fire was started to hide a crime and that only matches were used to start it. Lisa died because she was choked and smothered to death. With advances in DNA science that didn't exist in 1981, cops would get their first new clue in 2004. They were able to show that the same person killed both Rachel and Lisa, so they know that the same person killed both women. Even when they looked at federal and state DNA information, this didn't lead to anything new. The case would go cold again in the end. In December 2019, the Ventura County Cold Case Unit decided to look into genetic genealogy. This is a way to find cousins of suspects by using public DNA sites. Police haven't said much about how the case went, but they did catch their first suspect, 68-year-old Tony Garcia, in 2023. Garcia's DNA was taken again, and it was the same as the DNA on both bodies. Tony Garcia lives only a few miles from both crime places. At the time, he was in the U.S. Navy. After he got out of the Army, he taught karate. No one knows if he was at the club where the two people were killed the night before. This suspect has been hiding in plain sight for over 40 years, a sheriff was reported as saying at a news conference. The cops still want to learn more about Tony Garcia and are asking anyone who knew him in 1981 to come forward. After waiting for 42 years, Roy Rodriguez and his two nieces, who are both nurses now, have answers. They heard that the person who killed Rachel had been caught. Roy never stopped thinking what happened to his sister Rachel and always hoped to find out the truth. He also never gave up trying to help his sister get what was right. The law has helped the families of Gondak and Zandejas do what was right. Laurel Mitchell is the second one. On August 6, 1975, at 10 p.m., 17-year-old Laurel Mitchell left her job at the Epsworth Forest Church Camp in North Webster Lake, Kosciuszko County, Indiana. A co-worker offered to drive her home, but she said she was going to Adventureland to meet friends and would walk instead. But she never came. Laurel never got home before bedtime either. Her parents would call the cops the next morning to report that she was missing. A few hours later, 2 fishermen found the body of Laurel Mitchell in a river 17 miles northeast of North Webster Lake. She died by drowning, as an investigation would show. At first, people thought she had been killed in a car accident, but when her body was looked at more closely, it was clear that Laurel had fought for her life because she had defense wounds. After that, the case was treated as a murder. At the time, experts thought she might have been sexually attacked, but there wasn't enough evidence to be sure. Someone who was there the night Laurel disappeared said they saw a 1970s-era Buick Oldsmobile in the area. Authorities from many different places would spend hours, months, and even years looking into how Laurel Mitchell died, to try to figure out what happened to Laurel. They would talk to more than 1,000 people, but in the end, her case would be closed. Detectives never stopped looking. In 2014, more than 40 years after Laurel went missing, the cops asked the public for help finding a singing group that had stopped by a nearby firehouse and thought they might have seen Laurel. But that suggestion didn't work. In 2013, a rat said that a guy named John Wayne Leafman had told him that he and his friend Fred Bandy had done something wrong. What Laurel said made sense in light of the facts. In 2014, someone else said that Bandy had said he did something bad at Mallard's Roost, a public access place near where Laurel's body was found. In 2019, they got a tip from someone who said that person had been at a high school party when Bandy said that he and Leafman killed Laurel Mitchell together. Also, in 2019, Laurel's clothes were sent back to be checked again by the police. In 2020, the clothes would have the DNA of a man from a different country. Since the first case happened in about 2015, this has changed how the game is played. Bandy's DNA was taken in 2022, and in 2023, police found that it was the same as the DNA on Laurel's clothes. They also learned that in 1975, Bandy owned a 1971 Buick Oldsmobile. On February 6, 2023, both Fred Bandy and John Wayne Leafman, who are both 67 years old, were arrested for 1 count of first-degree murder. They were both taken without any trouble from their own homes and are being held without bail right now. People think that both guys picked Laurel up and offered to drive her in the Oldsmobile. Then, they took her to the river and killed her there. It's not clear why at this point. It's also not clear if either of these guys has a criminal background or if there could be other victims. But Laurel Mitchell's family now knows what happened after 47 years. Noble County Prosecutor Jim Morey reflected on his curiosity during a press conference, expressing his ongoing wonder about how the victim's life would have unfolded. Morey acknowledged the missed milestones that she would never experience, such as prom, graduation, and potentially getting married and having children. He lamented the absence of someone to discuss these matters with and seek information from, emphasizing the need for guidance during his personal growth. Morey emphasized that while sending the perpetrators to jail was a significant step in the process, it marked only the beginning of the case, signifying that more steps and actions would follow to seek justice for the victim. On February 9, 1987, the body of 82-year-old Opal Wheel, who lived in St. Petersburg, Florida, was found in her bedroom. Mrs. Wheel's sister-in-law came over when she didn't answer her phone that morning. Mrs. Wheel lived by herself because she had lost her husband. Her brother and his wife lived close by, and the whole family was very close. When her sister-in-law came to visit, she looked out the window and saw that the kitchen nightlight was still on. This was strange, because Opal always turned it off when she woke up at 6 a.m. At that point, she called the police. When they got there, Opal was sitting still in her bedroom. Officers could tell from a quick look that Mrs. Wheel had been hurt because she had deep marks around her neck, mouth, and face. Opal Wheel was last seen alive about 12 hours ago. People who knew Opal best said she was tall, thin, and always dressed well. They also said she was a kind woman who often went for walks in the morning and afternoon with a few other women from the neighborhood. Her brother and his wife, who lived just a few doors away, would often stop by to say hello. Investigators found out that the suspect got into the house by breaking a window and cutting the phone line. In 1987, the team of investigators used vacuums and other tools to find clues. Some hairs could be found in other places. At the time, the investigation showed that she died because she was both choked and hit hard. She was just in her pajamas when she was found in her room. Neighbors were asked. Some people say they heard a noise and went outside to see what it was, but they didn't see anything. The neighbor behind her said that his dog didn't bark that night, even though it would have if someone was in her yard. Some of her drawers looked like they were quickly opened and closed. Some small pieces of jewelry were taken, like her wedding ring. Most likely, the main reason was to steal. Maybe Opal died because she heard noises and woke up. After looking into it for months and coming up empty, the case was closed. They didn't give up, and as the case went on, they were able to use the evidence they found at the scene to put together a partial DNA sample. The right person wasn't found until 2020. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit asked the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to test the data in more ways. They also talked to Parabon Nanolabs, which is known for looking at genes. During the many tests, Parabon Nanolabs was able to help make family trees. Detectives were able to find cousins, and the lab narrowed the list of possible killers down to 3. After a lot of work, the cops were able to rule out 2 of the suspects, leaving just 1. When Opal Wheel was killed, it was found that the main suspect lived less than a half-mile away. Michael Labnewski Jr. was found to be the person who might have done this. He is currently living in Waveland, Mississippi. Pinellas County police officers went to Mississippi in 2022 to find out more, so that they could get a DNA test. They did some spy work. They did this in 2 different ways. Labnewski was followed to a gas station in July 2022, where they saw him open a straw, stir his coffee, and drink from the straw, which he then threw away. Then, they got that straw, which they did more than once. The second person was a local detective who ran a diner and was good friends with Labnewski. So that people would come to the restaurant, they offered to let the cops put a flyer on Labnewski's car that said anyone who could show proof of residency could get a free meal at a certain time and day. Labnewski came, ate the free meal, and then left. The things he had were kept. Straws and tools were tested, and his DNA was found in hairs that were found at the crime scene. Michael Labnewski, who is 55 years old, was arrested in Mississippi on January 26 and sent to Pinellas County, Florida, where he is being charged with first-degree murder. He told the police that he wasn't near Opal Wheel's house when she was killed. He said that an old picture of the subject didn't help him recognize him. He lived just a few blocks away when Mrs. Wheel was killed, but he moved soon after. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office said that the investigation is still going on. Labnewski was taken to the Pinellas County Jail on January 31, 2023. No bond has been set for him yet as he waits to go to court. We never stopped thinking that Opal's family would be okay. They thank the cops for all their hard work. And Tracy hopes that her mother's dying wish comes true and that her aunt finally gets justice after 36 years. He has walked on earth and breathed air, which is something my aunt could not do. So, this video is over. We really appreciate you staying until the end. As always, the best way to help the station is to click the like button. You can also subscribe to my channel and click the bell to make sure you don't miss my next video.